welcome to another episode of Asperger's Answers. Today we are talking about stalemates, blood draws, consent issues, all sorts of cool, interesting, related stuff about Asperger's life. With me, I have Mr. Frank Sanborn.
Hello.
I have myself, Annie Rady, and Miss Lauren over here, who is our coach. And in case for the first time, I'm the one with Asperger's. Well, he is sort of too. He's undiagnosed. You got your ADHD diagnosed this last week officially.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But you also have a whole bunch of Aspie kids.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're our wonderful coach that comes from the actual professional psychological realm. And then, you have me. So, what we do during these shows is we take questions from our AE Plus support group, and then we answer them here, because there's a lot of times where these questions need a little bit more answer than just a one sentence, hey, do this. It's something that we like to talk a little bit more in depth. But let's say hi to some people. Anne from Canada, hello. Marie says hello. Meg's from Australia. Yesterday was like everybody from Texas. We got Oklahoma. All sorts of people. Hello. So welcome. Nice to say hi to you all here. So let's jump right in to the first question here. This is from Pam. And Pam says, we are still unfortunately in a stalemate position here, one in which our son seems to avoid us, gives minimal responses to open questions, and reverses night and day, so that any chances of communication are instantly reduced. Now, it's just possible that we're somewhere on the blue line waiting for liftoff. She's talking about our concept of red line versus blue line here. But unless we can see some signs of new shoots developing in our lives, it's hard not to feel very down about this in the meantime. I also wonder how to encourage communication and possible change. That teensy bit of red line coercion creeping in. Yes, we are loving, empathetic, and approving, but we cannot, for example, set responsibility agreements without a structured conversation, which he would almost certainly refuse to have, or have a collaborative process of co-creation with someone who doesn't consent to the co-creation. That also means I'm unsure what to do when it comes to certain tasks that would be generally considered a minimum non-negotiable part of life, e.g. responsibility for self-care or reasonable share of household tasks. I don't want to knock him backward, but I'm convinced that we're moving forward. As I'm questioning, I'm reminded of CBT therapists who describe Carl Rogers' core conditions, empathy, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard as necessary but not sufficient. Because we're offering these things, but these things are staying the same. Any thoughts? No, not at all. Next question. Yes, lots of thoughts. Let's just go down the line. Let's make it easy. And then Frank, you want to start?
Sure. So, I think that this is a hard situation, and especially I think what I try to do is find the little things to start the negotiation process and kind of nurture that. So whether it be an interest in cooking or an interest in something else, nurture that. Like,
whatever, like throw all the rules out, and if they just want to eat quinoa with you while drinking chocolate fondue, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, but that's what they want to do. Cool.
Yeah, and just spend some time and just spend some time on their terms.
Yeah
and that will help in the communication.
Yeah, for me, what I would say is that you're saying that you're on the blue line mostly. And the difference between the red line and the blue line is actually, Jesse, can you put up the graphic if it's there? If it's not, then it just won't be up in a second. But if you could put up that graphic, I want to just really quickly explain to people what's going on here so they know the difference between the red line and the blue line here. But essentially, what happens is in red line actions, all the work is backloaded. So if you see on the graph here that when you're doing a red line action, one based on control and coercion and manipulation, it works really, really well to start out, right? But then the more you do it, the less things work, but it requires more and more work. So all the work is backloaded. In the blue line, which is based off of trust and acceptance and all those things, all the work is front loaded. So you don't see a lot of the results until the end. So going back to what Pam is saying, she says that any chances of communication are instantly reduced. Now it's possible we're somewhere on the blue line waiting for liftoff, but unless we can see signs of the new shoots developing in our life, it's hard not to feel very down about this in the meantime. And that's what's going on here is she's in blue line actions, but it's the very beginning of the blue line, so you're not going to see any results. And meanwhile, the red line is always tempting you because the red line gets immediate results, but if you look at it in the long term, it just makes things harder. So what I would say is just sort of stay the course. Hold space, continue to do what you do, trust even if you aren't seeing results right now that you are doing the right thing.
And look for the little things to be able to build more interactions.
Yeah. What do you see from this? Because you're the one that talks to all our parents every day.
All the time. So first thing I want to bring up is something we call defense mode. Pam, you probably have heard of defense mode. A lot of you have, but if you haven't, it's our core principle here. We have videos, we have webinars talking about it, but basically...
There's links above in the description for this video.
So if he's in defense mode, which it sounds like he is, he's absolutely panicked, he's stressed out, his anxiety level is really high, and when you're like that, you are literally fighting for your life every breath, and so there is no opportunity to talk. Like everything scares you, everything stresses you out, and discussions are just not going to happen. And I have a feeling that's probably where he is. So staying in line where you are is actually very important because eventually, like a tuning fork, you guys will actually find a balance and he'll resonate at your level. So staying there, but also open communication. Or even
if that just means a letter.
Open statements. We acknowledge that you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Or just, I've had parents actually text their children, email their children, write letters to their children if they can't get through to them.
And they're in the same house.
Yeah, because if they're on their computer all the time, but just expressing to him that you are here, but obviously he's in a place, acknowledge where he's at. Just lay it down, acknowledge where he's at so he doesn't feel so alone.
Yeah.
And he will start to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I've seen.
Really what I'd say is that ultimately what this comes down to is a measurement issue. Like, you're looking at it in the moment and it looks like you're in a stalemate, but if you are on the blue line as you say you are, then there's really nothing to worry about because it will come to fruition and it's literally just a measurement issue of it seems like nothing is happening. But I can tell you, having been that kid, having been in that situation, it's all happening internally. We aren't going to show it to you until the last second. But it's happening, it's there, and it's your job to sort of trust that and hold the space. Because the moment you say, I need to control it, I need to just force him, it's like, well, now you have to restart. So, let's see what the Facebook world, Mr. James. James is amazing, we always love him. James is saying, text communication can be a lot easier. Sometimes I find it easier than with my wife if there's been a misunderstanding. Get rid of facial expressions and other nonverbal stuff too. The problem is that you need to be very specific with your language because you don't have tone of voice then. So something that would rely on tone of voice then is something that isn't really something you can deal with. Kelly is saying, my son did start writing me letters. So, again, alternate modes of communication,
I kind of want to throw something else in.
Yeah.
I think when I'm hearing you say, I saw the word empathic or empathetic, kind, you are coming from an emotional point of view. And what I have learned working with people with Asperger's and, a lot of coaching around it, cerebral and logical is the way to go. So if you want to try to talk to him, and he's in that mode, you might be too squishy feely for him in that mode, and he just may be annoyed with that.
Yeah,
and
he probably is.
What I have found working with Danny and other people is be clear about your thoughts, be non-emotional about your thoughts, get to the point, and then back up. And that would be advice.
That's like an Asperger's person dream right there. Right there. It's just like, I wish people did that to me. Like, that would be like that's like, I dream of this life, but I don't imagine it actually being able to happen. But it's like, that's like, utopia almost for me.
Well, being neurotypical and my personality is, I want to help. I'm a helper. That's why I'm a coach and counselor. But I want to help people feel better and feel better about their situation. And I've realized for people with Asperger's that can backfire because what makes them feel better is what makes them feel safe. What makes them feel safe is a sense of control. And so if they're not grasping what you are saying or you're just too feely about it, they might just tell you to shut up. They might walk away. It might
just irritate them.
It just might, probably it does. So, because your parents are coming from a place of love.
It also assumes that it's like, oh, you are broken and you are not whole, and therefore you need me in order to make you whole, and we're just going, screw you, I can take care of myself very much. Like, I don't need, Heather, our director of operations, who's not here today, but she's on a lot of our other shows, was saying that she was at the hospital or a medical testing center, I forget which, the other day doing one of those stress tests on the treadmill where they hook you up to all the things and work you and then like look at your heart afterwards. And they kept going, it's only a minute longer. It's only a minute longer. And she's looked at them doing, I have no fear. I can handle this. You don't need to keep telling me that it's a minute longer, and honestly, it's sort of patronizing for you to say, it's only a minute longer, like, as if I'm unable to do it on my own. Like, how about you assume that I am competent and capable, and then unless I exert otherwise, but that's so foreign to most people, just honestly because of how screwed up our world is in a way, that, like, you have to just assume that people suck at things, and then people with Asperger's just get pissed off about that.
Well, and the thing is, as a parent, you're trying really hard to make the things easier on your child because you love them. But come to find out, that sometimes is the worst approach because really it comes along and across as condescending to them.
Yeah, they know what to do. They just need space.
So laying out your boundaries around what it is that works for you and acknowledging where he's at might be a really good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Logical, cerebral.
And just like, and giving them more space and maintaining the measurement of if you're on blue line, stay on it. Know that it's working if you don't see results because you're not supposed to see results for a while.
You might want to actually ask him, is me doing this irritating you? That simple.
Oh, if my mom asked that, I would love that.
Right? Like, and he can turn around and say yes.
Or no.
Or no, but something's irritating him because he doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So figure out what it is, a repetitive pattern that you're falling into, and figure that out, and start paying attention to yourself, and try to change that. Or just ask him. He'll probably give you a one-word answer, but you're going to get your answer.
Yeah.
And that's where you start.
It totally is. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be back answering the next question. Completely different topic. We're talking about what do you do with getting blood draws and other medical procedures when the person with Asperger's is totally not having that at all. So we will be right back talking about that. See you in a sec. I remember growing up and not really having many friends, wanting friends, but not having many friends simply because I didn't know how to be social with people.
My name is Heather. I'm the COO here at Asperger Experts, and I'm a mom. My son was diagnosed with Asperger's a little more than a year ago, and he's amazing. I'm trying to raise a productive, independent, self-supporting person. I need support to do that. I can't do it by myself.
So, we are back. We were just talking a little bit about the blood draw question from Greer here, who asks, can anyone suggest things that might help my pain-avoidant daughter get blood drawn? We're heading at the doctor right now, and she's freaking out a bit. Thanks. First of all, nobody's idea of a fun time is getting needled. Not even like heroin addicts actually like it. It's not like that they are addicted to the sensation doesn't mean they like it. So acknowledging that nobody's idea of a good Saturday morning is to get pricked with a needle and have blood sucked out of you, like that's just not fun.
It's not.
I think a lot of people get like stuck in she doesn't like it, so she needs to be able to like it before we can do it. It's like, no, that's actually not a thing. You can totally not like something and still do it because you know the results that it's going to get you. And you don't do the blood draw because you want to have a fun time. You know this.
Had one this morning.
Yeah. You do a blood draw because of the results and the information that you will gain from it. And you still, it's not a fun time. Nobody likes having, and then you feel really woozy afterwards. But just to acknowledge that and just say, that's not fun. nobody likes this, but this is the information that we're going to get out of it. And then we can move to strategies to actually mitigate that. My biggest thing is realizing that when you think about it, the thing that's worse is the thought of having a needle, not the actual needle. And so when I realized that, I'm like, oh, okay, then the thought is actually worse. But then also, for me, it's just like afterwards, like I bring a smoothie or something just so I can like not pass out. But I mean, that's really, for me, if you're extremely pain avoidant though, there are some things you can do. Frank, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Some of the things that we have done with one of the kids in the family who is absolutely avoidant of needles. In fact, it took, I think, 4 visits before we got a blood draw recently. Some of the things is you can actually use a pin. This actually doesn't have it, but you can do like
a
that.
little clicker pen.
Little clicker pin, and just do it, on the skin to show that that's really the amount of pressure and how it feels when it, just that
you just
little
like
bit of feeling.
You just and like that's what it feels like. And so, okay.
Let them know that sensation.
Yeah, and you let them be in control of it so they get used to it.
And they get used to it and have some control over it. Also, looking away really helps a lot.
Why would you look?
I do.
I don't know what it looks like. I have never looked.
Because
that's correct. I don't know what it looks like. I have never looked.
You can close your eyes. You can look away. I look outside. Like if there's a window, like I'm all happy because I'll look outside and look for a happy thing, look at a bird flying or whatever, and then okay, then I'm done. And it's like, oh, okay, and doing that. And unfortunately, we do have medical conditions that the only way that they can check where we're at and how well we're doing is blood tests, and sometimes you have to get them on a regular basis.
Yeah, I had to, when I was growing up, I was severely underweight. I talked about this, and I had to get blood tests every 3 months.
Yeah.
And, like, the first one's always the bad because you don't know what to expect. So you're like, then you get used to it, and you build this up, build up, and it's like this, that was it thing. And for me, it helps to have a routine afterwards. Mine was go to IHOP. Okay, so I know I'm going to get IHOP from this. And have sort of a reward through that. One rare cases where I say, okay, bribe them.
I mean, how many times do we have to accept doing something that's sucky, and as our own personal thing, we give ourselves a reward for it? It's fair. When you're doing something sucky, I think that doing something nice is like the way to balance that out.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about the actual sensation because you can do numbing gel that can
lidocaine.
Yeah, lidocaine. That's what it's called. And there are alternate methods that they can use, if I remember correctly, after the 4th time, they had a little high vacuum thing. So they basically vacuumed the blood out of him instead of just sort of letting it pump out. And so the whole thing took 10 seconds.
Yeah. And there was a lot of fear. And, what we did is, we talked through this, and the first time we went in, and he actually was dehydrated. And so one of the things is make sure you're well hydrated because, set your son or daughter up for success.
Yeah, make sure that you've slept well. Make sure that you're hydrated to the best of your ability. Make sure you're well fed depending on the blood test.
And that could be, just water, a glass of water in the morning really helps. And, we finally were able to do it. And we also did it with different parents because some parents kids were more comfortable with. And then sometimes there's, the other parent where they're not so much the, okay, I know this is going to suck, but we got to do it. And there's kind of that parent versus, the other parent, which is more lovey. And
for me, it was also that I had a favorite chair at the blood test place. So it was like, if they just had one of those school desk lit and put your arm out here versus the nice overstuffed chair, completely changes it. What are your experiences?
So I am incredibly hard to get blood from. Really hard. Really hard. They have to pull out the big guns for me, and so I become very pain avoidant with it as well. So I would say hydration is really important. It hurts a lot less if you're highly hydrated. Needs to start the night before though. Warmth, heating pad. They have those things. The I don't know, the little packets that people use from skiing and
the hand warmers.
The hand warmers. Thank you, and the feet warmers. put one of those on the arm before, like an hour before you go, and get that area really warm because the vein comes to the surface and you can actually pull blood really quickly. Another thing with Asperger's, there's two things going on with them. They're sensory overloaded, and they're, as I keep mentioning, their ability to process is very high and very logical. So I think what I would recommend would be to do everything you can to make her comfortable, but also do everything to help her feel in control. And by explaining what's going on, maybe look up.
Yeah, like at every step. Like I wouldn't look up like a video, but I would.
No.
What I would do is say, like, what I had them do is explain every step. Now I'm putting on the tourniquet. Now it's not going in yet. Now I'm just wiping your thing with alcohol. Now your arm with alcohol. And now I'm taking out the okay, here we go. Tell me when.
Right. Well, maybe even looking up, reading about it and saying, well, this is why you need a tourniquet. And having her understand why are we using this shape of needle? It's probably going to be a butterfly. What does that look like?
See, I don't even know that's a thing.
Yeah.
There are different shapes of needles?
Yes. And children...
I don't look. I just know something is going into me, and that's it. I didn't even know there were different shapes of needles because I just, like, distanced myself from that thing.
Well, with kids, too, especially, their veins are so small that it hurts more if they don't use a butterfly needle. And I know this because I've had so much blood drawn. But also...
See, today I learned you can ask for a different type of needle and it hurts less.
It
wow.
does. Butterfly...
Why didn't anybody tell me this?
So here's a factual thing, right? Had someone actually told Danny what was going on and that he has choices, it would have made him feel more in control.
I literally, up until this moment, I had no idea that there are different types of needles that I could choose from that would hurt less. It's like when they give you the IV tape after you have an IV, and then after they rip all your arm hair out, then you realize that you can use that tape that only sticks to itself, and then you're thinking, why didn't you use that in the first place? Like, I don't want to rip all my arm hair out.
I don't know why they do that.
I don't know either.
But they do that. And yeah,
because they're sadistic.
They're just getting the job done. They're not even thinking. And you can even go ahead as far as calling the blood lab ahead of time and having questions that your daughter maybe wrote down and getting some answers, letting her talk to the lab technicians, letting her get comfortable, because a lot of them have kids, right? A lot of lab techs have kids and they know how it feels. So do everything you can to help her feel in control of the situation and be a little easier.
Yeah. Cool. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and we will be back to answer some more questions. This time, we're pivoting again. My 10-year-old son is adamant that he does not want his pictures taken to be in the school yearbook. So see you in just a sec for that. I would like to officially invite you to join us in person for a weekend workshop we call Deep into Defense Mode Live. The next dates are November 12th and 13th, 2016 in San Francisco, California, February 11th and 12th, 2017 in Orlando, Florida, and May 20th and 21st in Los Angeles, California, and that is 2017 as well. You can get more details and register at aspergerexperts.com/workshop. We only have 50 spots available for each location. And the reason why I love this is because this is my opportunity to meet you in person, to help you understand what it is to be in defense mode and how to get out. And really, coach some people, help some people, interact with some people, have lunch with some people, dance with some people. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about gaining new experiences and new tools. So if you are wondering what it's like to be a part of the DITM Live seminar, watch this.
I'm Ty Miller, and I came out here with my son Austin, who has Asperger's. And what I perceived what was going to happen was it was just going to be instructions directly to my son Austin on things he can do or needs to do to improve, to make his life easier, both socially, academically. But what I learned were the tools that I need to obviously earn more of his trust, but the tools I've learned are going to help him as well as myself. But the most important thing is, he lives with us. He's in of course, his home, our home. But I have learned some great tools that help me, that will in turn help him. And I see exactly how it's going to work. And this was a great seminar. I was pleased with everybody, and I highly suggest this to anyone, obviously with a child with Asperger's, but really it's just a great course for anybody. And that's it.
And we're back. So Anne had a question before we get to the next AE Plus question here. If we can't attend, can I access something about defense mode to help my son? Yes. We have an entire course about defense mode. We have a webinar. There's a link literally right here. It says learn more about defense mode at aspergerexperts.com/free class. If you go there, you can sign up for a defense mode webinar, or if you go to aspergerexperts.com/defense mode, then we have a great article introducing you to the basics of defense mode. That is aspergerexperts.com/defense mode. So, yes, in other words, you can. So, let's take another question from our AE Plus support group, and there's a link down below where you can try our AE Plus support group and join this community for only $1, by the way. Carrie is asking, my 10-year-old son is adamant that he does not want his picture taken to be in the school yearbook. To me, it seems like his choice to make. Seems like a basic consent issue. I would say a picture of her high school ID card is required, but a picture for a school fundraiser, like a yearbook, isn't. The adults in school are looking at me like I'm crazy for allowing him this choice, but I'd rather save the argument for important things like flu shots. Any thoughts? Let the adults look at you like you're crazy. It is a consent issue, and I would not betray his consent and force him to do something like this, and I would save that for something like a flu shot. So, you are completely in the correct there, and that's what I would do, is you'd say, cool, you are a fully free-willed consenting person. If you don't want to be in the yearbook, by all means, don't be in the yearbook. I mean, yeah, that's really what I'd have to say about that. It goes a little bit deeper, though, when you start to talk about the paradigm of the adults thinking that kids aren't really kids, or kids aren't really adults, or like the whole, like, where does the separation between kid and adult happen, and what freedoms does a kid get and what don't they? And a lot of times people just decide arbitrary things. No, you're my son, you must. Because I randomly decided so and I don't have an actual logical basis reason for this. I just am obeying the laws of my culture that tell me to do this. And that's where I see the real issue going. Frank is like the master at holding space for that.
Yeah, I have a few kids, and
People have been talked to.
And talked to. Consent, allowing kids to make decisions starting early on is really important, because it gives them a sense of what a decision feels like to make. And that could be a good decision, that could be a bad decision, that could be a good decision they thought, or a poor decision they thought was good, and then they get to learn what that whole decision thing, internal dialogue is. And, it's one of those things that we only learn through personal experience.
Yeah.
And so, I would definitely not fight your son on this. I'd be like, you don't want your school picture taken? Cool. Not only that, but if I kind of ask why to my kids, because I like to know, like, why don't you?
Just curious.
Just it's out of curiosity. I'm not trying to change their mind. And so, and there could be a whole different set of reasons for it, and it may be a way to go in and explore some of those reasons is asking that. And, if it's a school thing, maybe he doesn't want his picture in, but maybe he does want something that does represent him. And so, maybe have him draw out a picture of a smiley face and hand it to the yearbook committee to put in as his face. If the parents feel like it's, other parents, not yourself, feel it's so important for people to represent themselves in the yearbook, then, let your son do that and say, yeah, he wants to represent himself this way. Give him that freedom, empower him. It's only going to allow him to grow and be a better person.
Yeah. What do you see from sort of the coaching side if you were asked this? Because the one sort of angle we haven't talked about is, how do you handle the sort of ostracization of all the adults going, well, like, you're the weird one because you're not allowing your kid to do that. So,
yeah, well, their advice is spot on. I don't have a ton to add to what they both said. I think it's really important to have your child advocate. That's amazing to have him advocate for himself. I mean, the number one struggle that I see with the older teenagers and the young adults with Asperger's is a lot of times their inability to communicate and advocate for themselves, because the parents have done so much of it. So letting him stand his ground is going to be a huge piece of him maturing and be able to make choices for himself. You know, what was the other question you had?
The other question I was just thinking about, sometimes it's hard for a lot of the parents in our support group to sort of like hold their ground, and they just, you know, the
social
the peer pressure.
Yeah, right. So it starts in high school and just continues up through when you have kids. Yeah, the thing is you know that what you need to do is stand your ground and do what's right for your child. You know that. You all know that. But how do we deal with it emotionally? A lot of times it's communication. If you're having issues with specific parents asking questions or ostracizing you or your child, I would actually have a side conversation with them, adult to adult, and explain to them, you know, that your son is not wanting his picture taken. He doesn't like the camera, or he's shy, or whatever his issue is, in a way that respects the child and owns those boundaries. And just let them know and ask them, turn it on them, say, would you force your child to do something that they didn't want to do if it really meant something horrible to that child?
And it wasn't really that like
important.
Yeah, it wasn't that important. Like, hey, I want to get a green pillowcase. Okay, like that doesn't really do much, you know.
It's not. This is going to do more for that child to stand up for himself than that yearbook picture will ever do for him. So
yeah, the yearbook picture isn't going to do anything for him.
Yeah.
When was the last time you looked at your yearbooks?
when I got them, many years ago. Also, one thing I want to let folks out there know that, you know, we focus a lot on the kids or sometimes adults with Asperger's and defense mode, but what I've come to realize is neurotypicals can have defense mode as well. And so you as a mom might be right on that edge of coming in and out of stress and managing life and lots of anxiety, and because we know how we hear every day how difficult it is to raise children with Asperger's, just to raise children in general, but then you have the sensory overload and stuff that these kids with Asperger's have. It's really hard. You may not know what to say to the parents because you can't speak because you're so stressed out and you feel this major mama bear need to defend your child. So I would calm down, relax, breathe, and then when you feel like you can think clearly and you're in a space where you're calm, talk to that parent if it's becoming that big a deal, or the teacher, but just stand your ground calmly and let your son make that choice.
I completely agree.
I think that the long-term benefits of allowing your children to make decisions builds trust in them.
Absolutely.
And builds trust in them with you, and they know that you have your back, and you know that if you do need to come to them and you need to tell them to do something, needs to be done, and you really kind of need it to happen because it's important, that they won't dismiss you, and even if they'll accept it and they'll make it happen, they may even own it. Yeah. But that goes through a building of a lot of trust and a lot of time, and giving your children the freedom to be and express themselves is the best way to do that, in my opinion.
Well, going back to what we said earlier, what I have found is these kids want to be respected. They want to understand. They understand from a different level than we do. And so trusting them to make a choice like that is saying that you trust them to be who they are, that they know what's best for themselves. You know, this is not a dangerous situation. It's not like, can I run out in the street in the freeway and run in front of cars, Mom? This is a yearbook picture. But it's showing that you trust your child, and it opens up a huge world for that child to start coming to you with other stuff, because you trusted them enough to know what was right for themselves and articulate what they need. That's what happens as their sensory systems overload. And then speaking becomes an issue. Like they can't even get the words out. I've been having that recently. I've been in defense mode. So it's really important to teach them how to articulate when something's really important to them. So.
She's decided to learn firsthand what it's like to be in defense mode.
It's fun. It's an interesting situation on this side, and it's hard.
All right. So we are going to take one more quick break, and then I want to share an awesome story with you. This isn't necessarily a question per se, but it is something that is sort of a thing to aspire to. So we'll be right back to share with you a little bit of hope for today.
For a long time now, I've been sitting on the sidelines just trying to stay out of it. And just watched with thorough enjoyment at Danny's responses and the window into his life, and all of your questions and your incredible answers. And lately I've been chiming in, and it's really fun to be able to help parents who ask a question about experience with IEPs or experience with homework. It's extremely rewarding to be able to give back and to help the community. And you know what? I'm still learning to this day from all the other parents who share experiences. And it's actually pretty cool to realize that I'm, to this day, not alone in this world, and how common many of the Asperger characteristics are from individual to individual. I didn't know how difficult it was for those with Asperger's to try different foods. I didn't know that there was sensory overload. I didn't know how common it was for people like Danny to walk into a store like Kmart with fluorescent lights, and how common it was to have a meltdown because of the overwhelm of the lighting. It was a very, very lonely experience raising a kid with Asperger's. And fortunately, today there are many, many more resources available. And that certainly would have helped us raising our son, Danny. You are not alone in raising your child with Asperger's. There are many resources available in this world, and many parents have been through very similar situations. There's no reason you need to be alone in this world when you raise your child with Asperger's.
So I wanted to point out something that happened in the comments over the break here. Charlotte, who actually sadly just said, I have to go now right before we're going to answer her question, but hopefully she can watch the recording, says, my daughter refused to read when pushed or when she feels she is being judged. And that sort of goes along with what we've been talking about this entire episode, is like, you know, back off and stop trying to push them or judge them or control them, because it just doesn't work at all. You said you had some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is I don't have the backstory on this. That's all she wrote, but what hit me was maybe her daughter gets really connected to stories when she's reading and really identifies with the characters, or maybe when she's playing a computer game or something, that she really connects with it and it makes her feel vulnerable. And so she doesn't want to read out loud, and she doesn't want to be looked at because maybe she's really intimately involved with the story. So she may need privacy when doing that. As weird as that might feel or seem, that might be something that she's really, feeling connected to. So encourage that.
The thing that brought up that I saw is, we want to be masters right away. And there's times
we want to be the very best.
Like we always want to be the very best. If we're going to do something, we are going to do it properly and to the best of our ability. We may not get there, but we are going to iterate on it until we master it. And there's a whole vulnerable spot of I'm a bit different, and maybe I don't read so well, or maybe I have a disorder. Maybe dyslexia is pretty common and different on the spectrum, and so maybe that's her own self-confidence that she
absolutely
needs some support in allowing her to hear her inner voice of yes, I've mastered that, and that feeling of success will come a long ways into helping to build her confidence. So I was going to say is spend some time and work on her confidence and as she grows, let her know how well she's doing.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like it as well. So let's jump over to the last thing here that I want to show you guys. This is more of just something cool. So this is more of a statement, I guess you could say, from Greer, who asked a question earlier, a member of our AE Plus support group, posts often. So I saw this literally 2 hours ago and was like, this is brilliant. Can I share this on our live show? And got permission to do so. So what it says is, do you know why this picture makes me happy? Because 2 years ago, my son would not have broken his wrist. You see, 2 years ago, he never had recess. His old school would constantly take away recess as a punishment. He would also not have tripped over somebody because he didn't have friends to play with and chase. He also would not have been laughing while chasing because he didn't have any happiness. We switched schools, and they have helped bring my son out of defense mode. They love and celebrate him, and he has blossomed. I know he is in pain, but it is temporary. When I told him today why this makes me smile, he said, "You're right, Mom, this is so cool." Now to get my daughter out of defense mode. she's the one with the blood draw stuff we were talking about earlier. But that's so awesome. I commented, I'm like, you are now the master of reframing, because that's what happens when you see the different perspective is, oh no, my son broke his arm and he's in pain, or that makes me happy because he never would have even gotten this situation if he didn't have friends and was playing with them and then tripped because of that. So it's sort of a little reminder to say, hey, there's always different perspectives. You can say, oh, and freak out about the fact that now your son is a cast and it's going to be a several, month endeavor that's going on. Or you can be like, this is amazing. This is awesome. Because he wouldn't have even gotten this. And after all, the pain is temporary. But now he has this amazing experience. Now he has the experience of,
He will
life.
remember this day for the rest of his life, the day that he broke his arm at school playing. And it will be a happy memory.
And the parent reframed it for the child.
Yeah, so that it isn't some dark, traumatic time of, oh, I'm never going to play with anybody again because this. It's a perfect example of the parent's emotional response dictates the kid's emotional response.
In every parenting situation.
In
Asperger's or not.
Yeah. In literally every parenting situation known. And so, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to invite you to join AE Plus and to join that conversation. Hang out on the Minecraft server with Frank. Get the Q&A calls happening with Lauren. Come say hi to me in just the support group that we have running on Facebook so that you can be a part of this awesome community. You can join, there's a link right below, try our AE Plus support community for $1 at aspergerexperts.com/ONE. That's aspergerexperts.com/1. Highly invite you, come, say hi to us. Try out AE Plus, see if it's right for you, and find your people. Get the support that you need. So, thank you so much. We will not be on the air or on the Facebook next week. I am going to a retreat, and our video guy is going to learn more about all the fun Adobe stuff. So nothing on next week. We will be back the week of election week, actually. So totally not talking anything about the elections, but talking everything about Asperger's. So thank you so much. You have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.